Research Flow. Today we have Maggie Vincent with us. She got her bachelor's degree in biology from Indiana University. Please say welcome to Maggie.
Hello, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming. I'm so excited. So I'm so curious. Tell me, where are you from in the US?
I'm from Indiana. I am a Hoosier. If you're from other states, you're like a Louisianian or a Washingtonian, but I am a Hoosier. So
That's how you refer to people from Indiana?
yes, not an Indianian, just a Hoosier.
Hoosier. I didn't know that.
Yes.
Good to know. Do you know how you tell someone from Honduras?
How?
Honduran, right? Yes, it's just Honduran.
Okay.
Have you been to any country in Latin America?
Costa Rica.
Oh, did you hear that? Costa Rica. What were you doing there?
I did in a course with the Organization for Tropical Studies, which, if anyone's interested, it was really awesome. I really loved it. So I spent about a month going to different field stations in Costa Rica and working with scientists both from Costa Rica and from the United States. And they do courses in English and Spanish. So you could be a scientist from Central or South America or from really anywhere in the world.
Amazing. Did you get to practice your Spanish?
Yes, I with one of the visiting scientists, Marcelo Araya Salas, I told him all the foods I can say in Spanish, and we practiced.
Go ahead. I want to hear it.
I focused all on desserts.
Okay.
But no, actually, I worked with him and then a wonderful PhD student she's at Missouri, but she's from Bolivia.
Okay.
And they would speak in Spanish together. And so I would practice my ear, and she, Belen, would make fun of it. She goes, I know you're listening.
Oh, were you able to follow the whole conversation?
Yes, except for when they got very fast.
Oh. Yeah, we have Aaron with us here, like 2 episodes ago, and he also mentioned about this program and that you went together. At least. How many times have you attended this?
Just once, yes. So we were on the same course, and it was a great fun. Aaron and I had a great time, except for he got some kind of stomach bug.
No. How do you deal with the food? Like, were you able to have, I don't know, were you following like a traditional Costa Rican diet?
It kind of depended on the research station. So we were at 3 different ones. One is La Selva, which is the oldest and most established one in Costa Rica, and then one was Palo Verde, which is over in Guanacaste.
Okay.
And then we went to Las Cruces down near Panama. And so they kind of have their own system of how they do everything. And there's a mixture of some more local food, and then I think they kind of get feedback from the visiting scientists of like, oh, we would, some of them are there for 6, 9, 12 months, or, you're there for quite a long time. And so you might really want some food that's similar to home. Yeah. So I know we had spaghetti one night, which was really nice. I was like, cool.
Okay.
But one of the common foods in Costa Rica is gallo pinto, and I love gallo pinto.
So gallo pinto is rice and beans?
It's just the Costa Rican rice and beans. And I love gallo pinto. So I could have it breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I'd be happy. So yeah, lots of traditional food. And then they would throw in
fruit.
Oh yeah, lots of fresh fruit, which, especially from being in Indiana, that we don't get a lot of really good tasting fruit. It gets shipped to us, so it's not
as fresh as you want.
It's tough when then you go to a place where the pineapple was grown like 2 miles away. It doesn't taste as good when you're back home. So yeah.
So why did you apply for this program?
So you can learn about doing field work from different kinds of scientists, and so running a project with them, and then you run your own projects
there.
Yes.
Wow.
And over the course, it's very fast-paced, very intense. I mean, I know one day I was like, wow, we had a short day today, and it was a 14-hour day.
Oh my Lord, that's a long day.
They were really long days. but it was really fun. It was really fun. There were times where I definitely thought, I'm going to keel over. I'm not going to make it.
Yeah.
But I would highly recommend it. And you get to work with such cool scientists we worked with scientists from Colombia, Peru, Costa Rica, Bolivia, the United States. Just really more, being in the U.S., I do see so many U.S. scientists.
Yes.
So it was nice to be in Costa Rica working with Latin American scientists as well.
So is this a good program that you will recommend to any student, or do you need to be in the ecology side or biology side, or anyone can do this?
So I would say you do need to have an interest in field work of some kind.
Okay.
So if you're kind of strictly a wet lab person, maybe not.
Yeah.
But they have ecology courses.
Mm-hmm.
They have a ferns and mosses course. I might have that wrong because I didn't do the course, but there's something like that, a plant
I think
course.
you're correct, because I know another person that he was here at LSU and he went in
Justin.
Yes.
And then they had something called a canopy course, which was
Trees.
also, yes, it was a
Right.
plant-oriented course. So they've got different kinds. So I think if anyone's interested, they should just go to the OTS website and they'll post their graduate and undergraduate courses.
Wow, even undergrad.
Yeah, so you can go as an undergrad. I think those courses are shorter, a little bit less intense. They kind of scale the difficulty with the expectation of an undergraduate versus a graduate student. So I would say for any kind of early stage grad student that likes field work, maybe is interested in tropics, should give it a look.
Yes. So just going a little bit back, can you tell me about your time during your bachelor's degree, and if you did some type of research?
Yes, I did. So I actually went into my undergraduate degree as a pre-med student. I thought, I'm going to go to medical school.
Okay.
And then I took an animal behavior course.
They got you.
And I was like, oh no, it's over. I was signed up for the MCAT. I canceled
After
the
one
MCAT.
class?
Yeah, I just loved it.
I love it.
I loved it so much. And I remember we heard about the Red Queen hypothesis.
What is that?
And so it's this idea of how does sexual reproduction maintain in a population or in lineages? Because if you think about it, asexual reproduction allows one individual to double much more easily than for sexual reproduction if you have two individuals, where you have to have two, and then they have to have four to double. So it's a lot more investment in order to grow your population. An asexual population can grow much faster. So why do we see so many more sexual lineages than asexual lineages? And the Red Queen hypothesis hypothesizes that sexual reproduction allows for recombination of gametes and allows for novel genotypes, novel phenotypes, which in the case of, say, like a virulent parasite or something like that, would allow you to adapt faster than an asexual lineage. Because if you're, the progenitor in an asexual lineage, your daughters are all like you. So if a parasite can get you, you can get all your daughters. It wipes them all out. In a sexual lineage, there's a chance through through gametic recombination that you could outrun the parasite. And so it actually comes from a Lewis Carroll book, Through the Looking Glass, where Alice is running away from the Red Queen. I haven't read the book in a while, so maybe I'll get this slightly wrong. But she's running away, and she says, I'm running as fast as I can, and all I'm doing is standing in place. And someone answers, oh, that's how things are around here. If you want to get anywhere, you'll have to run twice as fast. So the Red Queen hypothesis says sexual reproduction lets you run twice as fast. And so I heard about this. I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's so cool.
It is crazy, yeah.
And then I saw that the person who was one of the people really working on this hypothesis, Kurt Lively, was at IU. And so I cold emailed him and I said, hey, can I work in your lab? And he said yes. And so I started working in his lab with these New Zealand mud snails that they study the Red Queen hypothesis with. And it was just a great experience. And I've been sold ever since.
So this was in Indiana, right? So you went from your bachelor's degree direct to your PhD. How was it?
I did it with one pit stop. I worked in conservation for a few months as a gap year to see if I wanted to kind of diverge into public work or if I wanted to go to my PhD. Decided I wanted to go into my PhD, and it was a culture shock. It was a big, I mean, just, I can't even tell you how many times I probably cried my first year, just feeling like, oh my gosh, everyone is so much smarter than me. Everyone knows what's going on.
Okay, can I be honest? The same happened to me. I was like, what am I doing here? And I thought about quitting so many times during the first semester. But hey,
I think so many people feel that way. Even the people who look the most confident, they might go home and just be like, oh my gosh. So that's why I try to kind of just like talk honestly about like, oh, I cried a bunch and I was so scared and so sad. Not to trivialize it, but to go to at least show people that, yeah, I haven't felt great all the time.
Yeah.
I've struggled, and
the struggle is real. It's very real.
Yeah.
Did you apply to other universities?
I only applied to 2, which is so dumb. I didn't know how to apply to grad school. I had no idea.
My gosh.
I only knew how to apply to medical school. So
that's true.
I applied to a couple of graduate schools, and I actually emailed someone different at LSU about, I'm interested in your work. And they were nice enough to look at my CV and go, you know who I think you should talk to?
Kyle.
I think you should talk to Kyle Harms. And so I emailed him, and he's my advisor.
Yay.
So I really got lucky because I was lost. I was totally lost on how to do anything.
Wow. So what are you currently working on?
So I work on mating behavior in insects broadly, but I'm currently working with the black soldier fly, which they're these, for me, obviously, they're these really cool little critters. They're a stratiomyid fly, and they're friendly. They don't bite. They just eat compost, break down food waste. So they're of great agricultural interest, right? Because we have a food waste problem globally. So there's a lot of agricultural work on them, and less kind of evolutionary and ecology work on them, which is great for me.
Amazing.
There's work, there's a genome, a lot of really great people to talk to, but I'm not stepping on toes necessarily by studying their copulation. And so I'm studying their behaviors during copulation. And so that's what I'm looking at right now. Yeah.
So far, what has been the aha moment in your research where if you go back to Maggie during the first semester, and now it's like, this is my place. I got it. Do you remember that moment?
I don't know if there was a single moment. It's come in bits and pieces, and it's much clearer in hindsight. But I've realized that historically, for mating behaviors, there's been and when I say historically, I mean maybe going back more than 20 years ago, where people were really focused on what are the males doing? And it ended once copulation started. They thought the male songbird sings for the female songbird, and then she likes it, and then they mate, and then she goes and lays an egg, and we're done. And anyone who's, I'm sure so many people are like, no, that's not what it is.
It's more than that.
But it was really focused on males do things, they then possess the female, and it's done. And that's not true. And so my focus is really on what is the interplay between males and females? What is the female doing? More of kind of a back and forth rather than a one-way information stream. And then what's happening during and after copulation to affect male and female behavior.
Interesting.
So more of an ongoing holistic process rather than just they mated, it's done.
I am fascinated about your
Thank
research
you.
project. I love it. Just the way how you talk about it. It's like, I want to read more about this.
There's a lot of really cool stuff. And I mean, there's so many diverse behaviors that whatever organism you're interested in, you could find something interesting to look at. I'm interested in insects, but if you wanted to look at birds or mammals or fish, you could go find something. And there is an array of weird mating behaviors. And I love that. It's just so cool to me. So
great.
I study insects now. Maybe in 20 years, I won't be studying insects.
It's the evolution of your own research, I guess.
It's
yeah. So have you find any surprising in your research until now?
I have actually, and so this isn't with my current project. I for a previous dissertation chapter, I worked with a species of butterfly, and they, how butterflies, have you seen those photos where butterflies are on like an alligator or a crocodile eye drinking their tears?
Are those real?
Those are real because they're getting salt.
I hear something similar, but not for the crocodiles. I hear that sometimes when butterflies come to you, it's because
I'd have to find it, but I have a video of a butterfly that landed. I was hiking in Texas. It was a really hot hike and I was drenched in sweat. And this butterfly landed on me and drank my sweat for like 20 minutes.
Oh.
So they want your sodium. They want salt. Just like how humans crave salty things. Animals need salt for proper, function. We have sodium ion channels, that kind of, all sorts of things. And so animals can be pretty sodium limited because there's not a ton of sodium in plants, if that's where you're getting them from. So if you're an herbivore, you're more likely to be sodium limited. If you're a carnivore, you can get enough from animal tissue. So male butterflies do this behavior called puddling, where they'll drink or to get sodium, but it's generally males that do it.
Wow.
In male butterflies, not all species, but many species present what's called a nuptial gift to the female. And it's inclusive with the sperm. It's not a separate thing. So it's a spermatophore that has the sperm. It might have lipids, nitrogen, sodium in it. And it's to convince the female to use his sperm. It's, hey, here is literally a nuptial gift. Please use my sperm. To anthropomorphize. But that's an adult behavior. So I was curious, how does the larval diet of sodium affect? Like if you got a lot of sodium when you were a larvae, would you be more successful? That's what I thought. No, I didn't find that. No. So that was surprising. So I reared larvae on different sodium regimes, high and low. And I thought the high sodium males would be the reproductive winners. No, they did just the same as the low sodium males. But actually, it seems like there's a downside of too much sodium. That actually it tips over physiologically, maybe. That tips over physiologically, and that you could have too much sodium because they actually have shorter lifespan. So there are trade-offs. So I know that's a bit long-winded, but that's my most interesting thing so far. That my predictions regarding mating behavior did not pan out, and there were actually life history drawbacks to them.
I'm going to ask you a very basic questions about butterflies.
Hopefully, I can answer it. I'm not.
How difficult is to know when or differentiate from a female and male butterfly?
It depends on the species. Luckily, in mine, it's fairly easy. So sometimes they'll have size dimorphism.
Okay.
Mine have some. They're not mine.
They are.
Closine licinia, the border patch butterfly, they have some size dimorphism.
Okay.
But there's enough overlap that it could be a really large male or a small female. So if you see a really large one, it's a female. A really small one, it's a male. But you can actually identify them by genitalia. So their genital openings are different. So the female has what's called a genital pore, which is where her ovipositor comes out, and the male has what are called valves. But basically, honestly, he doesn't have a large genital pore. So it's more so. And then females have kind of a beefier abdomen because when they emerge, they have eggs. So that's in my species. There's gonna be variation.
Interesting. I wanna go back home and look at videos. I need to see this happening, like in the butterfly. Yeah. So when it comes to the butterflies, because I had so many questions about the butterflies. So how do you catch them? Do you go to the field with lambs? Do you have sugar water, or how do you catch them?
Traps for them?
Yeah.
So you can catch adults. You can go out with a big butterfly net and catch adults. It's easier to get the caterpillars. So they live in northern Texas. They range from northern Texas down into the northern part of South America. So you can find them in Colombia, Venezuela,
everywhere.
Yeah, getting into kind of like the top quarter of South America. And so you can go out and they're about this big, the butterflies, and they're orange, so they're
beautiful,
pretty conspicuous. So you can go and catch them with nets, or they feed on sunflowers. So female adults will lay their eggs on the underside of a leaf, and then they'll hatch and they'll just, very hungry caterpillar, munch and crunch and spread out. So you can actually kind of see the focal point of where they were laid by the herbivory. They'll kind of skeletonize as they spread out. And so I would just go in, I would get a bunch of caterpillars, put them in a jar with a bunch of sunflower leaves, and take them back home to Louisiana.
So I'm actually working, one of my dissertation chapters is with sunflower. So do you have any sites exactly where you collected your
I sure
larvae?
can, yes. And
maybe
actually,
you can share that
I
with
can
me.
tell you. And also, I should say a wealth of knowledge on this would be Luis Santiago Rosario, because he is the one who started working with these butterflies. Yeah. He's the one who found where to collect them. But yeah, actually, it's a great trip because you go over to San Antonio and then down to the U.S.-Mexico border, and then just all along, so you can get some great food.
I love that.
You're in
you are in a good place because of their food.
Yeah, so you can get a lot of really good food all along the U.S.-Mexico border.
I love that. So you also mentioned, just going back to Maggie during her first year of PhD.
Yeah.
And you were struggling a lot, right? Do you think that this was the famous imposter syndrome?
Absolutely.
Attacking you, taking over you.
Attacking me. It was, yeah, I had imposter syndrome. I have imposter syndrome. It's just that it's
always there.
It's always there. And I think I'll probably always have it in some degree, but it's less in charge now. And I was actually talking to my therapist about it today. Like, I'm getting ready for the postdoc process of like applying for postdocs. And I have imposter syndrome about I'm not good enough to be a postdoc in someone's lab. So,
oh boy. I think that usually the smarter people I know are the ones who feel in this way.
Not to be rude, but I think sometimes a little bit of ignorance lets you just blissfully move through the world.
Really?
And not think about, oh, I'm good enough to do this.
Yeah. So during that time, when you were feeling down, how did you keep to continue? What was holding you
together? So I'd say I had bad ways of dealing with it and good ways of dealing with it. So maybe I'll talk about the bad ways first.
Let's do it.
Bad way, isolating. I put on just this aura of I'm good enough. And I was kind of just faking my way through it. And then sometimes I think that's fine. If you have a meeting that you're stressed about and it's 1 hour, fake it till you make it. Go in, impress in that meeting. They don't need to know that you're scared or that you're an imposter. That's fine. But if you're at home, you don't need to just pull in and be afraid and so I would say isolating is the bad way to deal with it. talking about it with friends, family, and colleagues is the good way to do it. And so that's why I don't want incoming graduate students, anyone to think that they're alone in having imposter syndrome. And so I think there's like a camaraderie in oh yeah, I've felt that for sure. Yeah. It doesn't make it go away, but I heard about someone I really, really respect. They're a tenured professor at an R1 institution. And they were giving a plenary talk at a conference. So like they've made it as far as you can think about it. Mm-hmm. And apparently before her talk, one of her grad students told me that she thought she was going to throw up.
Wow.
So, and it's not like I'm not reveling in that this person felt uncomfortable, but I'm like, oh, this person who I really picture as having it all together, having everything I want, they're still like scared and feel like they're not good enough. And so what if you are good enough? Like, yeah.
So what will you say to anyone who is entering a PhD program and might be facing pretty soon or probably in the middle of their PhD?
I would say, maybe don't be surprised if it hits or name it. Like if you are feeling that you are not enough, that you're not smart enough, not good enough, go, okay, could this be imposter syndrome? And hopefully you have some kind of graduate mentor, maybe someone in your lab that you can talk to, someone in your department who you've kind of struck up a nice relationship with, and they're maybe a couple of years into their relationship or into their degree.
Yeah.
I think they would be a really good person. Your advisor might not be the person to talk to about it. Not that, if I had a problem, my advisor would want me to talk to. Yeah. But I think having someone closer to your stage is good.
I agree.
And then having a very good support system. So your friends might not be scientists. Maybe they are. My friends aren't scientists. But they understand not feeling good enough. Yeah. They also sometimes don't feel good enough in their own work. Yeah. And then I'm in therapy. And therapy is really helpful. So I would recommend, if people are at LSU, mental health services here are free. So go see a therapist. Yeah, I think anyone in grad school should maybe see a therapist because it's hard. I agree.
I think that we all, in general, we all have some traumas from we were kids, teenagers, or whatever. So I think that having a therapist since the beginning of your PhD can make your process not perfect, not easier, but a little bit better. I don't know if that makes sense. Because you will have that guidance in somehow, someone that you can go and talk. They are professionals. Yes. They understand this. I will definitely advise that to anyone who is just at the beginning of their PhD. So besides that, is there any specific mentor or advisor that has a huge impact on you or in your research?
My advisor, just my straight majority advisor, he is amazing. His name is Kyle Harms. He's here at LSU. And I didn't know how to pick an advisor when I was looking at graduate school. And I'm so lucky that I got an advisor who was a good fit for me.
Perfect.
Because any advisor, they can be the best advisor for one person, but they might not be the best for someone else.
I agree.
Because mentoring and mentee styles need to match. So it's not even necessarily, oh, they're good or bad.
Totally.
It's, are they good for you? Are they bad for you?
Yeah.
And so Kyle is really great. He cares about my work, which is what you would hope and assume. But he encourages a lot of individual work. So it's really on me to drive my thesis. And he is there for advice, for support, for connecting me to resources. But it's self-driven, which it has been tough at times, but is overall very good because now I feel like I've had some of those growing pains.
I was about to say that because you had some experience as a research, right after your bachelor's, but you don't have a master's degree. You just jump as if Wonder Woman to a PhD.
And there were growing pains for sure. There were, but I think and I hope that has really paid off in kind of forging me as a scientist and being able to follow my curiosity and create a project of, okay, what's a good question? How do you answer it? Is it interesting to me? And is it interesting to the world? And he's interested in making sure that I personally am okay. So he also checks in that way, without ever being, overbearing or anything like that.
So what will you say has been the best advice that he gave you?
He said, and he doesn't remember saying this, but he said, attack your own ideas ruthlessly. What's left standing will be beautiful.
I love that.
Yeah. And he said it, I think that's, I went after our meeting and I wrote it down. So I might have a word or two off, but that's pretty close to what he said.
I love that. I think that I'm going to quote him because I like it.
It's really good because if you are, I know if something makes it past him, it's had a pretty rigorous check. And so I want to also do that for my own work so that I know when I send something out to a collaborator or a committee or someone that I have really put it through my own test of like, okay, is this good? Is this as good as I can currently make it? So
great. I love that. And how was the general, how is, because you're still in the lab, so how is the experience in his lab so far? For how many years have you been there?
This is my 5th year.
I love that. You're about to say bye-bye.
I'm about to go. Goodbye. I'm leaving.
Me voy. Adios.
Me voy. Adios. I can't wait. It's been really interesting to go from being the most junior graduate student to being the senior most graduate student in my lab. It's really crazy. And so I remember when, I would say the grad student who really, at the time, grad student mentored me the most was Luis, who I talked about. And when he was leaving and we had a grad student coming in, he told me, he said, try to, give this student advice that you would have wanted to hear. He goes, that's what I tried to do for you. I don't know if it bothered you. Yeah. So it's a very, I was like, oh wow, now I'm like really, I'm a senior grad student and I've worked hard and I don't know if I can give advice, but I'm going to try.
Yes, you can.
So it's been very rewarding.
Very rewarding. Do you like mentoring students?
I do, yes. I definitely second guess myself a lot on it because I'm, still as a very early career scientist, I think I am finding my own style of, okay, what kind of, and I'm a bit of a passive person, so trying to be more straightforward in my communication, that's something I'm really working on.
Okay, let's pretend. Let's pretend that this is my first semester at LSU.
Okay.
And I come to you and I say, Maggie, I know that you are a 5th year PhD candidate. Let me correct that. She's a PhD candidate.
I am.
And I want to be the best, at least in my lab, the best version to myself as a PhD student. How can I measure success as a PhD student?
Okay. One of them I would say, are you setting goals and checking in with yourself on them? So both short-term and long-term goals. What do I want to do this month? What do I want to do this year? And then actually holding yourself to them. It's okay if you don't hit them, but why didn't you hit them? Like, I wanted to submit a manuscript by the end of the summer. I didn't end up submitting it until last week. There were reasons for that. Okay, that's all right. So goals. Then another is growth. Are you pushing yourself? Are you learning new things and and are you pushing yourself in ways you want to be pushed? So not just doing something because someone else says you should. So setting your own goals for growth is also important, because I think it's really easy to, you get a lot of advice and you need to go, okay, but what's the advice that's for me?
Yes,
that actually works. And then also, I know you can't always be your happiest in grad school.
No.
But are you taking time for yourself? I'm a big believer in work-life balance. I'm not that grad student you're gonna find in the lab at 8 p.m.
No, me neither.
Sometimes I feel quite guilty for that. I think
Please
there's a lot of guilt over not working enough as a grad student. There's this culture of just driving yourself into the dirt. And so one metric would be to take care of yourself. That's what I would say.
Good. I think that is amazing. I thank you for that. Why didn't I come to you before? Damn.
I don't know if I knew that when you started. I don't think I would have been ready.
Is there any hobby or any activity that you do to forget about?
Yes.
PhD.
I have two main hobbies, I would say. I like to rock climb.
Okay.
And for LSU students, we do have a climbing wall at the LSU gym. But I climb at a specific climbing gym.
Because you're a pro.
Because I'm addicted.
Oh, I love that.
And so I climb 3 days a week. And sometimes I climb by myself, but sometimes I climb with friends. So it's a great, it's good physically, but it's also good socially and mentally. And it's kind of hard to think about your dissertation when you're climbing.
I bet.
It happens sometimes, but it is pretty tough. So I rock climb. And I find a lot of grad students rock climb. So for any grad students, just ask around your department. You can probably find someone.
Yeah, I have seen people at the UREC. That's not my thing.
It's not, and it doesn't.
No, so I guess you have really strong
I'm working
arms.
on it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it could just I really stress physical activity that feels good for what you want to do. So going on walks, going on runs, whatever it is. And then I also am a big reader. And people always you must read so much for work. Why do you read for fun?
I was about to ask.
I don't know. It just is totally different to me. Somehow it's just totally divorced. And I do a lot of audiobooks.
Love that.
And so I highly recommend audiobooks because you can slow them down or speed them up for what level you need it to be. So
you put it in 2?
Yeah, I put it on 2. But then when I've been trying to listen to Spanish books,
and
I slow them down. They are
okay.
this.
I got a good question for you.
Okay.
PhD candidate, Maggie Vincent.
Yes.
If I ask you about one book that after reading this book, I will get to know you better, which book would you recommend?
Oh, okay. Okay. That's interesting. Can I give you one? Can I give you 2? Oh.
Okay, give me 2. It's fine.
Okay, I'll give you 2. One
in English and one in Spanish. I'm kidding.
One is originally in Spanish, but I haven't read it in Spanish yet. I will one day. Okay. So one it's called Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead.
Interesting.
It's by Olga Tokarczuk. She's a Polish author.
Okay.
And many of her works are in translation in English and in several other languages as well. But it's about a woman who, she's the caretaker for a summer village outside of Warsaw. So it's for the wealthy families in Warsaw, and they are only there in the summer. And so this book takes place in winter, where it's her and only a couple other people.
Winter in Latin America or winter in
Poland? I love So I'm talking a foot of snow on the ground.
I don't know
or
that.
more, I'm not sure. And out of the very few people that live there, people start turning up dead.
Interesting.
But she knows she's gonna solve the case.
She's the one who's killing everyone?
She's gonna solve the case.
I think she's the one.
Maybe. She's gonna solve the case because she's an amateur astrologer. So she's doing
I'm reading this
She's
book.
doing the birth charts of all the people who died.
Okay. I have some. Do you know how to read your chart?
No.
Okay, I was like, can I give you mine? I'm just kidding.
But this main character couldn't.
Okay.
And it's weird. It's like kind of sad, but kind of funny.
Okay.
And
I will get to know you better as a person.
And it's a little ridiculous, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I love that. What is the second one?
The second one is 100 Years of Solitude, or 100 Años de Soledad, by Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
Yeah, okay.
Which, I mean, a huge classic.
Okay, I don't know if it's true, but I hear that there is going to be a series on Netflix about this.
I hope so. It'd be hard, but good.
Yeah, I have never read the book. Embarrassing, I know I should have, because this is a classic for the Spanish literature or Latin American literature. I might do it in the future.
I like it a lot.
I
think it's a really great book.
I can wait for you to read it in Spanish,
and then
you can tell us how different
how
it
does
is.
it? Well, yeah, because I want to catch the feeling.
Exactly.
And that's because I know I like it, but I've heard that just prose-wise in Spanish that I know I'm really missing something, so I want to read it in Spanish.
Okay, cool. Definitely, reading is amazing.
Yes.
I grew up reading. Since I learned how to read, my aunt used to give me book after book and after book. So, yeah,
they're wonderful gifts. I love giving and receiving gifts. It's very sweet. Yeah.
So we have a saying in Spanish. Maybe you can help me to translate this to English, or maybe that is the same in English. Okay, it goes like this: Tonto es quien presta un libro, pero más tonto quien lo devuelve.
So stupid is who
Presta is
like to lend. Stupid is lending a book, but stupid is return. But even dumber is to return it.
Yes.
So you should keep the book.
Have you heard that?
I haven't. I don't think we have anything like that in English.
Okay, yes.
I like that.
So in Spanish is tonto es quien presta un libro, pero más tonto el que lo devuelve. I don't know if that's good. Get your own book. I'm not lending you mine.
I have gotten better about if I lend a book, I'm usually prepared to not get it back.
That's a nice way to put it.
If I want a book back, I try to specifically say that.
Can I please?
Please.
So, if someone borrow a book from you, how many months or weeks will you give this person to give it back to you?
Well, it kind of depends on the person in the book. So, I just sent a book to a friend, and I told her, this is long term. I've already read it. I know you'll take good care of it. You can keep it for however long. Others that I trust less, it's shorter.
I don't blame you. What would you do if you have your favorite book and you lend it to a newest friend and she gave it back to you on time, but with coffee on top?
I think I would
end the friendship?
I would think less of her.
Okay.
Because I'm very klutzy. I often spill coffee and stuff on my own books. But
that's your book.
That's my book. I try to be very careful with other books, and so I would replace it.
Are you the person that write notes when you're reading, or that's like a big no for you?
Only in specific books. So I'm trying to read in Spanish and beef up my Spanish, and so I am translating in the margins. Words I don't know, or like if there are phrases, you know, like, oh, okay, this is like a Spanish phrase that I would like to remember and whip it out in conversation and look really cool.
Now you can, bring out just what I showed you, tonto, and blah, blah, blah.
Tontos?
Yeah. So, are you ready to give some feedback on some Reddit stories?
Whether it's good, I don't know, but I'm ready.
Hey, we are just venting here.
Yes. So, would you like me to go ahead and read it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So this is from, I don't know what subreddit it is. Oh, r/PhD. And the Redditor says, hey everyone, I'm a bio PhD student here. I worked under a toxic postdoc for 2 years after my bachelor's. This postdoc was very critical of me, rude and demoralizing when I was new to the lab and was making silly mistakes. Thankfully, I got into a really good lab for my PhD, and I'm now mentoring/helping a master's student in her project. Even though I don't mean to be rude, I feel like I'm being very aggressive and critical of her mistakes. I want to break this cycle of toxic mentoring, so any advice would be helpful. How do you deal/react when junior students are not being attentive and are making silly mistakes? How do you motivate them to do good science?
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Maybe you, since I read it.
Great. Okay. So it's very interesting to me that this person is saying, yes, I was mentored by someone who was very toxic, and so he knows what toxicity is. And then it's a guy, I assume, and then he's saying, he's recognizing that he's being toxic as well. Interesting.
I think, yeah.
I think that you want to break this cycle. So I will say it's good that you know what you're doing wrong, but let's focus on what can you do better. Okay, so I like something that you mentioned, that now Dr. Luis Santiago, he told you about be the mentor you wanted to have. Unfortunately, this person had a really bad mentor. So how can you be better? Personal opinion, right? We all have been new to something. We all make silly mistakes and big mistakes. So why, instead of focusing on this mistake, why don't he celebrate the small wins for his master student? Why, instead of criticizing what is wrong, why don't you asking, okay, walk me through your thought process. How did you get here? In that way, you're going to make this student to think critically. Make this student to find his own mistakes before you jump in and join, right? Because yes, this is a cycle. If you are continuing doing this, probably this master student will be doing the same. And we don't want that. We're tired of that. We want to be mentor in a proper way.
Yes, we want to have constructive
criticism, right?
Yeah, I agree that the first thing is recognizing, like you said, that you are perhaps imitating or recapitulating some behaviors from a past mentor. And if you notice that your first instinct is to be harsh or react quickly, you could kind of rewire your own reaction there. You could even start with like writing down your initial reaction and then reword it. Write it, okay, I want to say it this way. I want to say that was a dumb mistake, you weren't paying attention. Okay, how can you say that where, maybe it has the same feeling behind it of you weren't paying attention and you made an error. How do you write it so that it's constructive and not rude? And so like actually practicing going to different ways of stating it so that it becomes easier, because it'll come with habit. Like you'll react better as you practice reacting better. And then I like what you said about focusing on the positives.
Yes.
Some people, it kind of depends on the person, do better with positive feedback mixed in as with the negative feedback. And if they're inattentive, having them go through it themselves is very important, of having them look at the whole process. And if they're inattentive, they might just need to be met with more regularly. They might need a little more attention from you because they don't have this internal incentive to do things correctly, and maybe they need more structure. So I know, like with my advisor, we started off having regular meetings, weekly meetings, and then it went on more of a, okay, now we'll do them however often. And if it ever happens that we go, a certain amount of time without talking or seeing each other, we'll schedule a meeting. But now we kind of know when to talk to each other and go through things. So I think having a lot of structure for a new student up front is going to help with that inattentiveness and catching any silly mistakes early.
Yeah. I also think that is very important, and I think that I mentioned this in a previous episode, but Pablo, he's a postdoc, and we were in the same lab at the same time for a little bit, and I just admire his mentoring style. And I'm going to tell you why. Okay, so he was very clear and honest with pointing out at your mistakes without making you feel dumb.
Yeah, that's very important.
That is very important. So I was like, okay, after reading his feedback, pretty much about writing. Writing is not my best skill. English is my third language. Anyways,
writing is hard.
It is hard.
But
you know what? When I was reading his feedback, I was like, damn, he's right. So I know I did it wrong, but I have a really good feedback. And even though I have to correct pretty much everything, I am motivated to keep doing it.
Yeah.
So I think that mentoring, it takes us back at what you say at the beginning, where you need to find the right advisor. But in this case, if you're a PhD student and you are mentoring the master's student, you guys are going to be around each other at least for 2 years or 3 years.
Yeah.
Of her master's degree. Wow. Yeah, mentoring is a lot.
It's hard, especially when you're kind of thrown into it in that way, where with the PI and the master's student or the PhD student, there is a mutual choice.
Yes.
If your student's in the same lab, there's less so. Like Luis didn't choose me. I mean, I'm sure he said she can come here.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is a little, so you're less likely to match, maybe.
I agree. So you have to do it by default.
But that's also part of life. You're not going to be working with people that you match with all the time. And so it is about learning, okay, how does this person communicate? How do I communicate? And how do we make that work?
Yeah, but going back with this PhD student, what if this person wants to be in academia and he's behaving like this? What if this person wants to have his own lab? What type of lab are you going to have, doctor?
Well, hopefully a good one, because they're self-reflective at this point.
What about if he's just bragging about being toxic and that's what he actually likes?
Oh no, that's terrifying.
Because we like it or not, there are some people that
wear it
want
as a badge
to be
of honor.
Yes. Hopefully, that's not the reason, right? Why we are reading this. Interesting.
Yeah.
This was like 2 years ago, I believe.
Correct.
So by now, the student must be done with her master's degree.
Or probably, hopefully, about done, yeah.
Or she quit. I'm kidding. She quit.
Hopefully, yeah, it's hopefully done or about done.
Yeah. So how was your experience in this podcast?
I had a great time. I really enjoyed getting to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. Is there anything that you want to share with us? Something that we should be keeping an eye on, or being ready, waiting for PhD candidate Maggie Vincent?
So I'll be looking for a postdoc soon.
Okay.
So if you have postdoc opportunities, let me know. Also, I am, of course, working on my own podcast, which is so funny. So my podcast is not out yet. We're currently working on it and hoping to roll it out soon. But it's called The Out Group. And I'm working on it with my friend, Lorna Tolsky.
Okay.
And it is about the experience of being queer in academia, in STEM, and all the joys, the trials, the tribulations that come with that experience. So we have guests, we hit on different topics like how to find a lab, intersectionality, what's it like to live as a queer person in a red state, all kinds of things like that.
Yes.
So we've had great fun working on it.
I love that. Do we have tentative dates for the release?
I would like it to be out by the end of the year. That's my goal. But I'm also finishing my PhD. So there are goals I have, and then there's the time I have. But we're hoping by the end of 2024 we'll have the episodes out. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I can just wait to hear this, and I'm going to make sure to come back when your podcast is out and just edit the description of this episode and put it right there.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm so excited. So what was the motivation behind this new project?
Actually, I have to plug OTS and Joana Goyas Vallejos, who I think she's currently faculty at the University of Missouri. That might not be correct anymore. But she was a visiting scientist at OTS, and she focused on science communication. And she had us try to do an episode of a podcast.
Wow.
And so actually 3 of us, Lauren, Pietro, and I, we did just like a 10-minute little episode. And then afterwards, we decided to continue. Pietro did not have time for it, which is understandable. We're all PhD students.
Yep.
And so Laura and I continued on with it.
I love that.
So yeah, it was totally inspired by us sitting in a room and going, okay, you have to make a podcast right now. What would it be? And we're like, well, we're all queer.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting.
I am very excited about this project, your project.
Thank you.
I think it's going to hit so many
I hope so.
PhD student, PhD candidate, and just the queer community. And that's what we like, right?
Yes.
So again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.
Is there anything that you want to tell to future PhD students?
Relax. Work hard, but not too hard, and you'll be okay.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being with PhD candidate Maggie Vincent. And stay tuned because a lot of news are coming from her podcast pretty soon at the end of the year or probably later, but we will keep an eye on her. Go and read about her amazing research and let's keep waiting for that new podcast.
Thank you.
And please remember, we are creating this community where we are here to support each other as a PhD student and just relate to the struggles and just keep doing this because we all love science.